Hello, everyone. We are interviewing Jane Prince. She's a St. Paul City Council member and she represents Ward 7. So, first, can you give us a brief introduction and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. This is my sixth year on the city council. I was elected originally in 2015. So I'm in the second year of my second term. Ward 7 is the south half of St. Paul's East Side. It's one of the most diverse wards in terms um, of immigrant groups. We have East African families, Latino, African American, Hmong, Karen. We are definitely one of the most diverse parts of town. And we also happen to have some of the areas of concentrated poverty in the city. So my job on the council is to ensure that the city continues to invest in the health and welfare of the East Side, and to provide to invest in housing, business development, and the quality of life of our neighborhoods. So that's what I do, and I'm very fortunate to do this job at the local level, because local government, in my mind, we're the closest to the people who we represent, and the people who we represent deserve to be able to contact us directly and get answers and get solutions to their problems and so forth. So it's a level of government that should be the most responsive.
For those who don't know, when and how did you get into politics?
Well, I've been involved in local politics in St. Paul. I moved to St. Paul in 1982, and my husband and I purchased our house on the East Side in 1984. And once I was settling into a community, I became really active in the life of my community, which led to my being involved in local politics, going to caucuses. And then in the mid 90s, I was elected to be the chair of the St. Paul DFL party. So that was a position I held for about 3 years. And then I actually ran for office myself in 2015.
What is the job of a city council member?
The job of a city council member? Well, as I mentioned, we represent the people in a specific area of the city. In my case, it's Ward 7. The population is probably around 40,000 people. And we work on all the issues that the issues and the services that the city provides at the local level. So it's parks, libraries, recreation centers, police and fire, public safety, streets, the investment in our streets, the condition of our streets, our trees. So most of the things you see when you walk outside are things that the city regulates, controls, and maintains. So that's what my job is to vote on those issues, to help my constituents, the people I represent, to get attention for problems on their street or in their neighborhood. It's very localized. It's just all the things that you can think about that would make your life better, safer, and more productive that are local investments.
Next, we want to talk a little bit about the St. Paul Recovery Act. So, could you tell us a little bit about what it is and why you sponsored it?
Sure. I will say that it very much had everything to do with the work of Green Party activist Trarin Cruz. About probably 5 years ago or so, I went to a conference, and I had been doing a lot of reading about American history pertaining to slavery, and then all the other ways in which our American society has not allowed African American people to succeed in our society since slavery. So right from slavery on through until redlining, restrictive covenants, mass incarceration, police brutality, the whole thing, that it's all kind of a continuation of bringing African Americans to the States and then holding them in slavery and then continuing to hold them back from any ability to be successful as a group. And so I went to a conference a couple of years ago. Trarin Cruz was there doing a session on reparations. And because of my interest, I went to that workshop, and I found he really gave a very compelling presentation on why we should be looking at reparations for African Americans, not only at the national level, which clearly that has been under consideration since the mid-'80s, but that we should also be looking at it at the local level. Because when you can't get the federal government to act or the state government to act, oftentimes cities step in to demonstrate or to build support for issues, hopefully up the chain. So anyway, Trey talked to me about the St. Paul Recovery Act, that it would be St. Paul would become an ordinance in St. Paul. City laws are called ordinances, and it would start to look at. It would create a commission, a permanent commission of the city that would look at ways to invest in the African American community, African American descendants of slavery, to do away with the huge disparities in housing, in healthcare, in education, in criminal justice. So because all those things are things that the city does, we would be able to have an impact by making particular investments in those various areas that would benefit American descendants of chattel slavery in St. Paul.
What can the city do to address the homelessness in the area?
Excuse me, what was that again?
What can the city do to address homelessness?
The city is, one of our roles as the city is we're supposed to be ensuring that there is an adequate supply of housing for people at all income levels. So what we know is that over the last 15 or 20 years, we have not kept up with the needs of the community in terms of providing housing that is affordable, especially at the lowest income levels. The other problem with homelessness is many people who are homeless have the additional challenges not only of being low income, but also maybe having mental health issues, not having access to health care, having chemical dependency issues. So there's a great variety of reasons that people are homeless. And it is the city's job to be producing housing that meets those needs. And so if you're somebody at the lower end of the income spectrum and you also have mental illness or chemical dependency, then the city should be building supportive housing. The other category of homelessness that is especially upsetting, and I'm sure you are all aware of this, is that we estimate that about 2,000 kids in our St. Paul schools are homeless. This is completely unacceptable. There is no way that a student can learn when they're facing the trauma of homelessness. And so, again, we need to be providing housing supports. We need to be building housing that's affordable and then providing the kind of subsidies that are needed, like Section 8 vouchers and other kinds of rental assistance, so that families can find places they can afford and create stability for their children. So as I said, we fell way behind in the last 15 or 20 years in keeping the production of housing, especially at the lowest income levels, at the level that we should have. So we're trying to make up for that now. But the other thing that we did last year was during COVID, as you know, homelessness really increased. And so we had many, many people who were unsheltered, who were camping outside and living in cars. And, you know, any modern society like ours, this is just completely unacceptable. And we need to be making much bigger investments to take care of this. But the city at that point joined with the county. The county is actually responsible under the work it does. It is supposed to provide that temporary shelter housing. It provides mental health services. It provides social workers and human services. And the county was not keeping up with the need of the unsheltered homeless either. So the city and the county joined together and using CARES Act funding, which was the money that we received through because of the COVID pandemic from the federal government, we were able to arrange for much better shelter housing than we had ever had before. That included, we leased Bethesda Hospital, which had at least 100 rooms in it, to be able to move individuals and couples into space that would work. We got a dorm at Luther Seminary over in the St. Anthony Park neighborhood that was for women and couples. And then we were able to lease the nuns' residence at the College of St. Catherine for family emergency housing. And that is, it's pretty inspiring to see the improved conditions of that shelter housing for families. They had been staying in church basements for the last many years. And the availability of the nuns' residence at St. Kate's has created a much more high quality and excellent option for families who are experiencing homelessness. And all of those housing options included 3 meals a day and wraparound services of, you know, whether it's helping people find jobs, helping people get mental health treatment, chemical dependency treatment. So we have been doing a much more holistic approach to serving people in homelessness since COVID. And I hope we never go back to the way it was before.
What programs does the city have to help youths like us?
Programs for youth. Well, I did mention the family housing shelter, but in terms of youth, we have a number of youth jobs programs. I don't know if you guys are all Right Track interns. Isn't that right? Well, right on. That's a city program. We just started a new Right Track program. It's called Right Track Plus, where 18 to 24-year-olds can get into a program. I believe it starts this month in August, and it will run through the fall. And it's aimed at helping youth who have barriers to employment be able to get some job experience and training and help them find their way into a more permanent position. Obviously, the other things that the city has for youth is we, through our libraries, we have excellent programming and all kinds of computer availability and resources that are very helpful to youth in the job search or for educational purposes. Our libraries, if you go into a library and you think there's something they don't have, they'll get it, including what we started noticing at the same time that the homelessness issue was increasing, was that a lot of people were going to libraries with serious social problems where they needed to be able to hook up with government services to get help in their lives. And so the libraries actually hired a social worker, which we'd never done before. And she works out of our busiest libraries in our areas of higher need so that she can help people connect with the services that they are entitled to, through whether it's through the city, the county, or the federal government. But youth, I think there's a variety, there's also our parks and recreation programs, all kinds of swimming and aquatics and sports and all that kind of thing for people who are looking for the opportunity to take classes and work out in gyms or swim or whatever at lower cost. But if there are particular youth programs that you're thinking of, I can certainly think about that. We did help 2 organizations over the last several years to build emergency housing for homeless youth. That would be unaccompanied youth. So that was through Ein Die Young. And Ein Die Young is an organization that serves predominantly indigenous youth from American Indian tribes, but also I believe that they are able to bring in other youth. And then there's a youth emergency housing project out on University Avenue in Pryor called Pryor Crossing, which is another place for youth to be able to live in apartments and get services to help them, stabilize their lives. We don't have enough programs, but there is help for pregnant youth or youth who are parents. But I tell you, we probably don't have enough. And these are programs that aren't just the city, or they might not involve the city at all. They might be county or state programs, but we can help put people in touch with those.
Now that we're seeing cases rising due to the Delta variant, why do you think it's important for your constituents in Ward 7 to get vaccinated?
I could not be a stronger proponent of everyone getting vaccinated. I just became a grandmother in 2020, so I have a 1-year-old granddaughter. I suspect maybe you have younger siblings who are not yet eligible to get vaccinations. And I'm very concerned about the fact that, from 12 on up, you can get vaccinated, but for those little ones, the Delta variant is so infectious that I really worry about our kids getting the disease. And what we keep hearing, and I'm sure you are all very aware of the news on this. Just this morning, I heard the Minnesota Public Health Commissioner saying that we're seeing an increase in seriousness of infections among children. So actually on the council agenda today, we are asking our Human Resources Department to put together a vaccination mandate for city employees. And we're getting a lot of pushback on that, as I imagine you understand that for some reason this has been politicized in a way that has not been helpful. And our police and fire unions, I think, are going to be pushing back on a mandate. And so, but I am a very strong proponent of vaccination, and I have worked with a lot of organizations in my ward who, I don't know if you've heard this term, trusted messenger, but that what the groups that work with the various immigrant groups, different communities in our city that have good connections, and among those communities, whether it's Latinx or Somali, and can help to encourage them. You know, there are other Somali people and other Latinx people, other Hmong people who go into those communities and say, here's why we all need to get vaccinated. And I really believe in those efforts, and I think they've been effective. And I would love to give more money to those groups to be getting everybody vaccinated.
As we're closing up, what advice would you give to people who want to pursue the same career path as you?
You know what? You're doing exactly the right thing. I mean, getting involved with the Green Party as an intern, learning about public policy, being out meeting people and seeing how communities work and seeing what needs are not being met in the communities. And I want to tell you, as young people, my newest colleague, elected in 2019, is Nelsie Yang. And Nelsie was elected to the council, I believe, when she was 23. She's the youngest city council person that St. Paul has ever had. And I need to encourage you. You don't have to wait long to be able to run for office. You learn everything you can, get out and connect with communities. And if you have a passion for it, I mean, I think that is the key ingredient, is believing that people should have good leadership and having a passion for being a person who can connect the voters or the people you represent to government so that their needs are served. And it's a constant struggle because, as I say, in my ward where there is a lot of poverty, people don't vote. And so our voter turnout on the east side is much lower than it should be. And if anything, people who have the greatest needs should have the loudest voices. So just think about that when you're thinking about the career you want to pursue, is that you can, if you believe in the power of community and your ability to serve that community, that's all you need. And a passion and interest. I mean, it's a hard job, but most of the time it's super exciting and gratifying. I mean, in terms of you just keep putting one foot in front of the other, and then one day, you have some big victory, getting reparations passed at the city level. We're the largest city in the United States to pass a reparations resolution. So it's possible to do big new policies and bring people along and get people on board. And you just need to have that energy and passion to want to do that.
Thank you so much, Jane. Nice hearing from you. Thank you for joining us today. We definitely learned a lot, and we hope everyone who's listening has learned a lot.
Thank you so much. Can you tell me your names, or you want to send them to me afterwards?
My name is Yasmin.
Yasmin?
My name is Najma.
My name's Summer.
It was nice.
It's so great to meet all of you, and make sure that Traren Cruz gives you my email address and my cell phone number, and I'd be happy to meet you for coffee or talk anytime about whatever you want to talk about or career stuff, just feel free to call me. Working with young people is one of the real highlights of my job.
Thank you. We appreciate your kindness, and we encourage everyone listening to go check out the different resources that the city provides. And yeah, thank you.
Take care, you guys. This was really fun.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to another edition of the Trent Cruz Show. Keep it locked here. We'll be back this Friday and this Sunday. 94.1 FM, Frogtown Tuned In Radio. Peace.